Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Setting the Scene. I'm your host, David. Now, we're going to do something a little bit different today. I'm fed up of being restricted by a 2x2 box or a 2x1 box. I'm going to go something a little bit more freeform today to try and tell a bit more of a dramatic story within the confines of a city, and then we are then going to couple that with with firefight. It's probably going to be a long video, but I think the end result will be really worth it. Now, I have got a ton of Unreal Wargaming Studios terrain. I've got a load of their buildings, road sections, tank traps, and some bunkers. Craters. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up a scene where the Imperial Fists are holding an objective, and they have been supported by a Sicaran. And barreling up the street in front of them is going to be a Phobos, Land Raider Phobos, and inside that Phobos will be a load of tactical marines. And essentially the story we're trying to tell is that this mighty vehicle is going to storm the position after coming under fire from the las cannons from the heavy weapons team, disgorge their troops, and then take the objective. So we're going to explore that a little bit more in Firefight, and we'll talk about whether it's better to, 12-inch the Land Raider and then flat it out to then get into position for the Marines to get out and then take on the Devastators, or whether the Land Raider hangs back, fires its las cannons and its heavy bolter, and then does it on a second turn. I have my own thinking about that, so we'll explore that when we get into it. But first things first, what we need to do, we're going to pop these models out of the way because they're going to get in the way for a little bit. And because we're going to use this for setting the scene, I need to make sure I can get the dice pad in shot. So I have a camera mounted just up here, and the camera will focus down and film the dice rolls. But I'm going to build this into the actual scene itself, so hopefully you won't be able to see it, and I'll conceal it with all sorts of training bits and bobs. So when we take photos later, I'll take it out, but as I'm building it, you'll see that I've had to keep this in mind, so I don't have to dismantle half the scene to make way for all of the terrain. So to that end, we're going to start with the roads. Now, every city has roads, of course. And I do have quite a few roads. I actually need more because I like to do quite complicated city routes with roads, and I don't have enough. So I will inevitably need to purchase some more. I've got a handy little chair down here just to help me out to stack all of the stuff out of the way. And the first things first, I'm just going to surround this dice tray, and I'm going to put a building in front of it to conceal it a little bit. Because most cities won't have a big black box in a building, concealing dice. So we need to make sure we do that. And these buildings, Unreal Wargaming Studios, as I said, they come in sort of 2 sections, and then I drill and pin them about 4 or 5 times for the smaller bits, and then the larger bits probably 6 or 7 or 8 times. Just a 1mm hole, 1mm panel pins from B&Q if you live in the UK, and just glue and pin it, loads of super glue, and it works perfectly, and they are really solid. And then with the addition of a floor piece, they're not going anywhere. So we're going to pop this here, just like that. So that covers that up straight away, which is great. There's a little bit coming through here, which we'll try and block off maybe with a container or a crate, or we'll put the container here. So that'll all block it off, which would be perfect. So we will continue the road sections on. I just need to make some room. Now, the smartest thing would have been perhaps to not lay all the stuff out at the beginning, but I thought it was important just to show you everything I'll be using. I might not use it all though, I might only use some of it, so we'll see how we get on with the progress. I don't want to damage Dan's model, so we'll perhaps pop these out of the way. Look at that. Loads of shelves just tucked under here. And in helping me doing this video as well, I've actually rigged up a TV screen which is plugged directly into the video camera. So if you see me sort of switching backwards to and from, I'm just making sure I can see everything and make sure it all works for you guys. So that's quite nice. I've took a photo as well, so you guys can see sort of what I'm seeing really, which helps. A little bit behind the scenes, I try to be as organised as possible, but it doesn't always happen. It's quite hard. I think, yeah, that's good. So I'm going to put this bombed out section just there. So that's my road section in play. So if you can't quite see it with these buildings in the way, it kind of goes up, round, and then down. And then we've got kind of a little square block. And this is where my devastators are going to be placed in here. I might actually put another road section here. You know, we're nearly getting on for a full 6x4 at the moment. But what we're trying to do, we're just trying to create the confines of a city. Because that's what City Fight's all about. You know, it's such a fantastic theme to set your boards around. You know, and most battlefields are quite open, and you just have to deal with all of the built-up areas, which can be tricky as well. If you're not used to playing on such a built-up board, it can present problems, but it's not a bad thing. It just teaches you some different ways to play the game. These craters are fantastic, and I will just put them in amongst the bottom there, and we will fill the bottom of those with stuff, so don't worry too much. Now, quick one here. So this building here, I've purposely built it with a flat edge, and that's because I can then join other buildings with flat edges, which I don't seem to have with me, which is convenient. Oh, here we go, we've got one here. So then you can make a much larger building. So when you buy your buildings, or from wherever you get them from, you've got to future-proof them to make sure you can build much larger buildings or smaller buildings later on. So that to me makes probably makes more sense going there. Actually, let's have a quick look at that. I haven't built this board before you guys before I film this video, so it's all kind of fresh in my mind. Now this will work, but I need to get rid of this bombed out section, but we will use it at the front there. You know, a lot of this is trial and error, and the more times you build this, the more experience I guess you'll get. Now that works perfect actually. It fills that entire space. I've got a doorway into the building, which is pretty much yeah, it's bang on in the middle, which is even better, because why would you build a door on one side and have, like, I don't know. So for me that works brilliantly. I've got a door right in the middle, and we've got tons of platforms here to put our Devastator Marines on, so that works really well. We're going to put our craters back in here. And the other thing I was going to talk about as well is the kits you can buy from Griff. You can make small kind of corner pieces, which again will extend your building. So you can build a square or a dogleg style and then make that one of the corners, which is really cool. Or in this instance, I was going to use this piece and stick it there like that. And so, because a building looks really weird to come to an end just on a flat space, if you've got one of these, you can just pop it on there. And some of these I've actually glued on in place like that. But sometimes it's good to have some spares just so you can separate it out. And you can see I've done that here as well. Look, that bit's been glued on. So that works really well. All right, I'll keep going. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to achieve a really confined space for that Land Raider Phobos to venture through. And luckily, if we grab the Phobos back, wherever it is, here it is. And you can't quite see, it's probably from this camera you'll be able to see, but it does fit in beautifully and creates that really claustrophobic experience that you get from City Fight, which is really important, I think. It's really cool. So hopefully you guys can see that here. That's good. We'll pop that back under here so we don't lose it. What else do we need? Oh yeah, so now obviously we've robbed this building to cover this one up, so I think that'll do a good job there. That bit's longer. Yeah, look, that works perfectly. Look at that. So I've almost covered that up entirely, which is great. Oh yes, we're going to use this bomb section just for a bit of variation. See if we can get that in. Yeah, we're going to have to move this one over a tiny bit. Oh yeah, that looks great. We're not too worried about this bit on the edge here. We'll fill it with some stuff and you won't see it. Yeah, I think that looks really cool. Really cool. The other thing we could do, change it up once again, just to get a bit of variation in the board. This piece here is a T-junction, but if I make it into a cross, a four-way, I guess. That might work as well. So the crossroads, I guess we'll call it, is slightly smaller than the T section. So you just have to bear that in mind. So if you do swap stuff out, it will change it ever so slightly. Now we're not quite there here, so we just got to shuffle things along a little bit. That works. Same here. Great. That is really cool. We're just struggling a little bit on that piece. So I'm going to pull it over. Yep, that's cool. And then what we can do now is we can add another section down here just to make that board a little bit more accessible. Because, you know, I'd imagine they would have built streets in blocks, you know. Kind of makes sense. So now we can do exactly what I talked about earlier. So this piece here is a flat edge. So we're going to couple that bit on there. That wasn't very clear, was it? Sorry. So we're going to do that there, on here, and then we'll use this piece to make a return, probably there, like that. That works because it's in line with this one here, which is great. I do have more buildings, but I didn't want to create too much drama in the foreground here, so I'll probably just put a crater or two in here, and then we'll just put some aggregate down and some rock, and then that's probably enough, because all the action's going to happen here. And we'll have to bring the camera a bit closer and kind of angle it in, I think. What I have got now is I've got a couple of these sort of Forge World barricades. I love to use these, and what I tend to do is I use them to reinforce buildings as well. So if I can just scooch that over a tiny bit. I know there's a hard edge there, but we'll blend that in later. You've seen me do that a million times. Probably only need one. I'll put a second crater in here. That's cool. Yep. Got some roof sections here, which works perfectly, so that'll be nice. Tank traps. I had some tank traps somewhere, didn't I? Here we go. And we'll put that there so that the Imperial Fists know that they've captured a strategic point, and they've put a tank trap in there, the width of the board, to deny access to any vehicles, which is something I think they would do. They know they've captured some good ground, and they want to keep it from the word bearers. All right, that is it. I'm not going to use many more of these sections. I think that one over there was enough. Might put one there. Maybe. Not too critical. No, do you know what? I'm not going to... What does that look like? No, it looks rubbish. We'll get rid of that. Okay, I'm happy. All right, I'm going to have a quick clear down, and then I'll come back to you with some more stuff. All right, I'm back. Okay, a couple of things. Now, these little air condensers from Adeptus Titanicus Forge World, they work really well on the top here. You know, the scale is quite good. So I like that. Little extra detail looks good. Now, of course, we're going to use crates in this board. Of course. So we've got the blue and grey, which is great. And we've got green. Now, I'm not going to use green because we've got the yellow of the Imperial Fist, the red of the Word Bearers, and then if we add green into the mix, I appreciate there's green on top of that building, it will look like traffic lights. So we're going to get rid of the green ones, just pop them out the way here, and we're going to use some red, and then we've also got some red barrels and crates as well. Red's for explosives, right? Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to put it on the corner here. I kind of like that. And again, I'm going to use one there to cover that corner up a little bit. Like that, I think. All right, and then these red ones, I'm just going to pop them here. Do you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of these Mortalis, some of these, just to create a bit of a unloading area if I can. So I'll try and dig out a load of the square sections and just build like a little raised platform. So I'll go find some more of those. All right, I'm back. Okay, I've just had a major fiddle with all the bits and bobs at the back here. I tried to use these sections to make a bit of a raised area, and it didn't quite work. So what I've ended up with sort of these reinforced bunkers, and I've put some of the tiles down the middle and then put a crate on top. And that to me perhaps suggests that it is a really vital cargo maybe, or you know, this is what the Imperial Fist are protecting. And I've put a ton of these red crates here just to reinforce its importance. I've gone a bit overboard actually, but I just wanted to show just how critical it is. I've just put a couple of barrels. I've got a load of barrels, so I'm going to do a load more once all the aggregate's down, just so we can start to blend all those elements in together. So we're nearly there. I've got another one of these red crates. I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to make sure that the red one was the most important one and not the grey with the blue stripe on it. So that is it, I think. Just one thing we've got to add, of course, is my little buddy here. Just try and straighten this section up a little bit. It looks a bit crooked. It's never going to be perfect. So you've got all of the bases and all the bits and bobs, but all we can do is later on try and blend it in as much as possible. I think we'll put our little buddy at the back here, just to make it a little bit more interesting for our word bearers to get to. I did toy with the idea of using this here. Looks kind of cool, but it's just the colours, the textures. This is really highly detailed, and these are quite, I don't want to say boring, because they are boring, but they're boring in a really, really good way. And they're quite plain, that's the word I'm looking for, and I think that works just really well on there. That's that. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have a clear down, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to blend all the aggregate into this board. All right, that's better. All that gear is out of the way now, and all that's left to do is just to blend all of these edges together. So again, we've got our slate, and then we've got our aquarium black sand, I guess it is. And all I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to cover up all of the black neoprene mat where it meets in front of those buildings. And don't forget, you've got the grey edge on the road sections here, which is really helpful. So you've got the grey of the building, the brown of the edge of the road section, and then you've got the black of the aggregate, and then we're going to come back in again with some slate, and it will all just look fantastic. I mean, you've seen me do this 100 times, so I'm not trying to labour the point too much. Road sections can be a bit of a pain. If I was building a board for the channel and we were filming on a day, I would probably put some either masking tape or some duct tape on the bottom of it just to hold the board sections together. And that just because obviously we're going to play games on it and it gets knocked, and in the heat of battle, you know, stuff just goes all over the place. So that does help massively. I've got a huge gap here, but thankfully we can blend it in, which is quite cool. Hopefully you can see this on the camera here. Can blend it in really nicely, and then the bit in the middle is covered up by the tank traps. So if we blend them in further, oh yeah, it looks a mess now, but don't worry, it'll be all right. Got a bit of a gap here, which we'll just blend in here. It's a bit boring, just kind of getting all these edges. Now this could have come forward a bit more. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Here we go. Now I'm not gonna blend this bit. I'll blend this a little bit, but I don't want to go overboard. You know, if I was building a normal board, then I would. But we'll just make the suggestion. Yeah, that's cool. Bit more aggregate. I've got a big bucket down here just by my feet. A little bit overboard there. I'm going to fill in all this gap in here because this is where a lot of the action is going to happen. The Imperial Fists are going to be stationed in here. I'm going to put a big clump of gravel, of building in here. I'm sorry, I can't get my words out today, it's terrible. Slate, that's the word I'm looking for. Just going to chuck it in, lovely. We can imagine as well that perhaps this little holding area, which I'll overlay a photo for, is within the building. This building's much bigger, it perhaps goes back a long way, and this is just a bay within that building here. I've got a bit of leaf stuck in there. Cool, bit more blending. Great. I mean, this building looks fantastic now. It looks really good. Cool. And then I'll just do a bit in the foreground so you guys, you can't quite see, the camera's not quite there, but I'll get loads of photos so you'll see the end result. I know it looks overloaded in there, but don't worry. Cool, bit more. Yeah, I know I keep banging on about this, but this really is the easiest. I know it's messy, but it's such the easiest way to create such a dynamic battlefield. There we go, I'm quite happy with that. A little bit in here. Again, not a lot of action is going to happen around here. Can blend this edge in. Just move that around. Get a bit of this. Could do another about 2 foot taller. My arms being another foot longer, but there you go. You got what you got. Great. I'm not going to do anything here with the dice tray. It's just purely to cover it up. Right. Now that container's in place, I'm just going to put a ton of aggregate. It's going to semi-bury it. And you can see as well, hopefully from this camera, that as I pour this down, it goes down to the side of the container and then it bleeds into through the doors, which is exactly what kind of it would do, wouldn't it? You know, we'll add a little bit of drama with the old slate chippings. Yeah, happy. We've got another container here, which I'm going to put, it's upside down, which I'm going to put there actually. Ton of aggregate again, bit more. Probably use no more than a bag here. Loads on this one. Looks really good. Bit more of the old Slateroo. Yeah, I like that. That looks good. I'm just going to sprinkle a bit over the assets over here. Because unfortunately I painted the crates after I painted the containers, so they are a slightly different colour. You know, we talk about consistency all the time, but I didn't write down the recipe for the two, so it's a bit bad. I might have to go back and repaint the red ones perhaps, but anyway. It's going to cover up any holes or gaps that we've created that we can't, because we can't close everything together because of all the bits and everything's in the way. It's a bit of a pain. I think we're nearly there. I'm just going to put a little bit of this and like the gully between the front of the buildings, because it would collect in there. Looks quite good. A little bit here, a little bit at the front of this one. Yeah, that looks cool. Bit here just to reinforce this gap because it is quite big. Yeah, that's cool. And then finally, I'm just going to come in, final pass with this aggregate just to help bring it all together. I need a tiny bit on that side. Yeah, that's way better. I know it's silly, but it does look a lot better. A little bit more here. Now, these tank traps are always hard to blend onto the road, but I think we'll get away with it. I'll put a photo. So don't forget, after these setting the scene videos, I always put a ton of photos at the end. So when I say thanks very much for watching, see you later, just sit tight, and there's 5 seconds. There's a ton of photos and they're each 5 seconds long. So if you need more time, just push pause button and you can have it for as long as you want, you know. So it's hard to get the balance, you know. Do I put one for 10 seconds and they're too long? And, you know, so I think 5 seconds is about right. I'm really happy actually. It's really good. I think this has just prompted me to buy more buildings and more road sections. I can build a massive 6x4, just really tight, really confined area. I'm really pleased with that actually. So we'll put our little buddy back. Put a little bit of aggregate on him just so he sits a little bit nicer. Yeah, that looks cool. Just a tiny bit on these floor sections rather, Tiny bit on here. Just a bit of a blow. Yeah, cool. I'm not going to do this edge here. Oh, God, knocked it. See what I mean about the tape? Works really well. I'm not going to do this edge here because I think all the action is going to happen sort of here. So we're not too worried about the bits on the edges. And I think that's it. The only thing left to do is to populate our board with some really cool models painted by Dr. Dan Porter. He worked hard for that title. We've got to give him his dues. I'm not sure. I might. Oh no, I said this was going to be the Imperial Fist reinforced position, didn't I? Where are the fists? They're just under here. Oops. Suitably fortified by that Devastator squad. Hopefully you can see that. I think you can see them just poking through us slightly. And then finally we'll add the Phobos. I'm going to start him down here. Yeah, some good 3+, 4+ cover saves there. Only 2 las cannons to bring their guns to bear against that Phobos. You know, the tricky thing about and we'll go into this in Firefight, is that the las cannons, you know, strength 9, AP 2, front armor 14, no flare shield because it's not a Spartan, of course. 5 to glance, 6 to dance, as they say, or to penetrate. You know, it's just going to be a question of 3s to hit, 5 to glance, 6 to pen. But, you know, I'm not going to go into too much detail. We'll explore that a little bit later. But with a cover save as well, you know, storming a position of las cannons isn't perhaps as frightening as it could be if you use the terrain to your advantage. And I think this scene here in City Fight perfectly demonstrates that. Sorry. All right, that's it. I'm done. I really enjoyed that. It was really good fun. I'm going to take a ton of photos, as I mentioned before, and I will stick them at the end of this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below, or you can email me direct. It's david@the30kchannel.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next Setting the Scene.